MacTaggart's Shed Part 3. So, Malky said, "Are you coming?" "Me?" Christy said. "Aye, come on, I've spoken for you. This is Christy," Malky said to the men in the back seat. "My wife's brother." "Mind I said about him?" The men in the back seat didn't reply. They were wearing dark glasses and black leather jackets, and they were very calm. Malky seemed agitated. "Come on then, Christy," he said. "We're maybe over late as it is." Christy went back into the house and got the old shotgun, slung the cartridge belt over his shoulder. He climbed into the front passenger seat and they drove off towards MacTaggart's place. But they hadn't gone more than 100 yards before they saw a strange procession coming down the road towards them. There was a pickup at the front, and MacTaggart, in his Macy Ferguson, that's a tractor, was herding the procession from the back. MacTaggart's face was like a concrete slab, hard and empty. There were men with guns on either side of the procession. They'd got 12 of them, 6 men, 4 women, and a couple of bairns. The women were sobbing, and the bairns were sobbing because the women were. The 6 men, who were all at least 50, looked quite calm, but it was a different kind of calm from the way the men in the back seat looked, more placid than calm. One of the men on the road was old Sammy. He had his dog on the lead and appeared to be humming a tune. Malky reversed the car up onto the pavement and switched off the engine. Usually he left it running, but this time he switched it off. "It can't have been them, can it?" Christy said. "Fucking right it can," one of the men in the back seat said. Christy turned round. The one who'd spoken had a ring in his right ear. Neither of them was from the village. "But that's Sammy," Christy said. The car filled suddenly with silence. "Who are you?" Christy asked after a few seconds. "Fuck's sake, Christy," Malky said. "Dinna need to know. You don't need to ken that." "I'm just asking," Christy said. But he turned round and faced the front again. "Is he with us or not?" the man with the earring said. "He's with us," Malky said. "'Cause if he's no with us, he's with them," the man said. "Christy," Malky said, and stared right into him. "I'm with you," Christy told Malky. "Right," the man with the earring said. "No more fucking questions then." They all got out, the procession turned into the field, and the pickup pulled over. Now MacTaggart was revving his tractor, urging people on across the drills towards the shed. Some of them stumbled, and the women cried louder. Malky said, "You can cry now, you thieving whores." And he sounded bolder than he was looking, and Christy laughed. Old Sammy must have heard them, because he turned to say something, and one of the armed men beside him prodded him in the side with his rifle, and he fell to the wet earth. The man kicked him to make him stand up, and Christy wanted Sammy to get to his feet, and he wanted him to stay where he was. Sammy's dog was running around in small circles, trailing its lead, barking and snapping at the legs of the man standing over Sammy. The man pointed his rifle at it, and Sammy raised his head and called to the dog, and it came and sat beside him. The man pointed his rifle back at Sammy. There seemed to be a moment when everything might be different. Everybody, the men with their guns, the prisoners, MacTaggart and his tractor, stopped and watched Sammy. Even the 2 men in leather jackets and dark glasses hesitated. It was as if somebody, with some brave, simple gesture, could change whatever was going to happen. And Christy thought, "I can do something here, I really can do something." Then Sammy caught sight of Christy and seemed to recognise him for the first time. His eyes flickered with uncertainty. He looked at Christy's face, and then he looked at Christy's shotgun. There was a long streak of mud down Sammy's clothes where he'd fallen to the ground. It made him look even more of a minker than usual. Christy kept his eyes on the streak of mud. That way, he thought he could do whatever he was going to do. "Wait!" he shouted. He was calling to the man, pointing the rifle at Sammy's chest. Christy walked over with the shotgun, cradled in his arm, right past the man with the rifle, and helped Sammy to his feet. He felt big and powerful, like a man in a film. "It's all right, Sammy," he said. He took the end of the lead, and together, Sammy and he started walking towards the shed with the dog between them, and everybody else started moving too. Sammy started to hum again. Up close, it was completely tuneless. It was a completely tuneless sound, more of a moan or a whine than a hum. Christy hated it. He wanted Sammy to shut up so he could concentrate. Something big was coming. Something so big you needed to focus all your thoughts on it and not be distracted. Christy felt as though, by being there, some great mystery was about to be revealed to him. It was like a Bible story from when you were born, a story that you believed but didn't understand, and now suddenly, years later, you're about to understand it. And these people, these miserable people, moaning and gurning all the way they always did, they were the key to the mystery. And the mystery was in MacTaggart's shed. But when they got to the shed, Christy didn't go in. MacTaggart stopped his tractor and got down and pulled open the sliding door with a blank expression on his face, as if he might be going to fetch a couple of stacks of fertilizer or something, but didn't really care, one way or another, if there was none there. They ushered the prisoners towards the door. Old Sammy looked at Christy, and he started to shout. He was shouting, "Help us! Help us! Why are you just standing there? Help us!" The man with the earring was watching intently. He didn't seem to see Sammy anymore. He was staring at Christy to see what he would do, to see if he would fuck up. Christy was still holding the dog's lead. He said, "I'll take care of your dog." Sammy shook his head. Christy said, "Sit," and the dog sat down beside him. They pushed Sammy and the rest of them inside the shed, and the other men, including Malky and MacTaggart, went in too. The only ones who were left outside were Christy and the man with the earring. There was a sudden clatter of gunfire from inside the shed, then nothing. The man with the earring said, "Nice work, Christy, but you can't keep the dog." "How not?" Christy said. He searched for the man's eyes behind his glasses, but he couldn't see them. Malky came out of the shed. His clothes were spotted with blood, and so were his hands. His face was very white. "You can't keep the dog," the man with the earring said. "Tell him." "I said I would," Christy began. Malky's face flushed up, red, and bore down on him so close that he could smell the blood in his shirt. "Can I keep the fucking dog?" Malky said. He flicked his eyes, indicating the shed behind him. Christy could hear teeth grind. Old Sammy's dog was sitting patiently, waiting for old Sammy to come out. Christy realised that what they were saying was right. He couldn't keep the dog. He pushed barrels of the shotgun gently against the back of his head, shut his eyes, and pulled both triggers. "Put it inside," Christy heard the man with the earring say. "You can clear up later." He kept his eyes closed and stood absolutely still, and he heard heavy breathing around him and wondered what would happen next. He knew with absolute certainty that he could not go into the shed. The only way they'd get him in there would be if they carried him in. A few seconds went by. Each one felt like a minute. Then he heard someone bend down next to him, give a groan, with the effort of lifting something heavy, and when he opened his eyes, he saw Malky's gun on the ground, and Malky's back as he carried the dead dog into the shed. Malky came into the house later that day, and the first thing he did was punch Christy in the face, sending him crashing to his armchair. Christy sat rubbing his jaw, but didn't get back up. He knew why Malky had done it. Malky took a new bottle of whiskey out of a plastic bag and cracked open the top. "Stupid fucking idiot," Malky said. "You're lucky to be alive. You don't mess around with these guys. Get some glasses." So they sat drinking. Christy rubbed his jaw and started to talk about what had happened, just the way Malky used to talk about his night rides, but Malky interrupted him. "Forget it, Christy," he said. "Forget it all. Forget about Sammy and the dog and everything you saw. It didn't happen, all right? It didn't fucking happen." And that was the way it had gone. MacTaggart pulled down the shed, and there was nothing inside it, and then he planted Brussels sprouts all over the field. Malky would come round and make sure Christy had food and drink, and Christy would try to talk about what happened, and Malky would tell him to forget it. "You're imagining it, Christy. You've been watching too much shite on the telly. All the news programmes that you watch, documentaries and all that. That all happens somewhere else, other countries, not here. You're away with the fairies." "But I seen you coming out the shed," Christy would say. "We took old Sammy and them inside, and you came out with blood on you, on your clothes. I was there. I'm a witness. I killed that dog with my father's shotgun," he would say. Christy, you're making it up. You're no right in the head. That's why they took that gun off of you. That stuff's all off the telly, Christy. It's got inside your head from the telly. You don't take it off the telly. Sorry, you didn't tack the telly off me, though, did you? So you didn't take the telly off me, though, did you? Christy said. He kept quiet about the stash of weapons in the attic. "Let them have the shotgun if it makes them feel safe." He had another, plus all the other stuff. A whole bloody arsenal. "Don't need to," Malky said. "You knackered it with leaving it on all the time. But I can get you another one if you want. You know that." "No," said Christy. "That one suits me fine." Truth was, he didn't need the television. He looked at the stuff Malky had brought, still sitting on the carpet in front of the fire. He didn't need the bread. The starlings could have it. He didn't need the eggs or the bacon or the baked beans. He looked at the whiskey. He didn't even need the whiskey, but he needed to think. And the whiskey would help him think. He needed to make a plan. He had to get in touch with Gillian somehow. He had to get in touch with the international boys, tell them about what had happened in the shed. He was a witness. All right, he had shot the dog, but only the dog, and he'd no choice. They'd have killed him if he hadn't. He picked up the coal hob and shoved more coals in the fire. He remembered the houses burning on that hillside. Terrible, terrible things had happened. He felt numb with the thought of all that hurt. He went to the window and looked out. It'd be getting dark again soon. He wondered if he would see the ghosts again, and how many there would be. He reached for the first bottle of whiskey and started to plan what he would do in the morning. That's the end, and this is the reference that you can copy and paste and use at the end of your essay.